In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, one God. I'm going to do something I've never done before. I need to come and ask a couple of you a couple of questions. I have never been to Italy, but I want to go to Italy. Who here has been to Italy that can tell us the memory they have of Italy they want to share? You going through your mind? Have you ever been? Who's been? All right, Nick, come on up, join the sermon. A couple of you up because that's what's going. Nick, I want you to think of the most wonderful moment of your trip to Italy and tell us about what impacted you about being in that place in where you're here.
We went to Florence, and in Florence we visited the Duomo. So we walked to the top of the Duomo, the stairs, and
Hold on a second. So I haven't been to Italy. What's the Duomo?
it's basically like a big cathedral that's there that is beautiful as much like I so the stairs that go all around the top, to the very top of the building. You can overlook the entire city.
Tell us about that moment when you got to the top of the stairs and looked up. What was it like?
I was a little tired, breathing a little heavy, but it was beautiful. So you look over the entire city, you were there, took a lot of pictures, and it was just gorgeous.
All right, beautiful. Thank you, Nick. I've never been to Greece. Who here has been to Greece and will share a memory of going to Greece? Come on up here. You've been to Greece. Think of one place, one moment where you thought this is just spectacular.
So we went to an area called Prague. It's very remote, along the Aegean, and we decided we wanted to hike. And it was right where the mountains meet the sea. And so we hiked every day, and we were with the chapels, and the place where we, maybe hiked every a few miles or so, just to work out chapels. And we get up early in the morning and hike, and we hike for maybe an hour or two, we came to the chapel, and early in the morning, there was a little maps that go over the campus we were in. So that's a very
Beautiful. Thank you. Both of you. Now, in spite of what you might be wondering, this is not an advertisement for traveling. What I asked these two gentlemen to share are memories of two places that I've never been, that I'd like to go. Now, when you think of Italy, you may not have thought of the moment that Nick shared with us. I wouldn't have thought about that. I didn't know anything about that place. But I've seen pictures of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. I imagine if I said to you, Nick, well, I've seen a picture of the Leaning Tower, even if I go to the Leaning Tower, have I really experienced all that Italy is? He'd probably tell me no. If I say to Greg that, well, Greg, I've seen the Parthenon, even if I go to visit the Parthenon, this iconic symbol of Greece, if I go just there and I leave, will I be able to say that I've experienced Greece? Probably not. I haven't traveled a whole lot out of the U.S. I've been to New York. I really like New York. New York has so many interesting moments. You can be in the hustle and bustle of Midtown Manhattan. You take a few steps up into St. Patrick's Cathedral, and the silence can be deafening. You can take a subway or a taxi down to Little Italy, and there's nothing like the taste of pizza coming out of the oven, fresh mozzarella melting on that beautifully baked bread, fresh basil on top, nothing like it. I could go on and tell you about New York. You might tell me, Father, I've been to New York. I went and I saw the Statue of Liberty. Then I went home. I will tell you with certainty, because I've been there, you haven't seen New York. What is all this about? Today we celebrate the Sunday of Orthodoxy. And my focus this morning is not on certain places or traveling. It's on the fact that when we go somewhere and we experience some place in its fullness, in its essence, there's nothing like it. And somebody who says, oh, I've experienced the same thing because they've either seen a picture of it or they've been to one of those places, it doesn't compare. Today is the Sunday of Orthodoxy. Properly, it's called the Triumph of Orthodoxy. And why we call it that is because this is the day, about 1,200 years ago, a little more than that, after a couple 100-year period where there were no icons in the churches. This is the day the icons came back. Now, we in this community, those of you that have been around for a while, you know what it's like to think about this church without the icons and the church with the icons. You know the difference if you were around for that time. Some people might say to us, why are they so important? I get to ask that question almost every time I get a tour group here. They say, why have all these icons? Aren't they expensive? I say, yeah, they're very expensive. I say, but we have to have them. They are essential to who we are as Orthodox. We can't imagine our churches without icons. But imagine it for a moment. You'd still have the liturgy. You'd still have the reading of the gospel. We'd still have the sacraments. But that one missing piece is a crucial and missing piece. It's not by accident that the Sunday that we celebrate the triumph of Orthodoxy comes in the middle of Great Lent. If there is a time of the year where fullness is celebrated and attempted, it's Great Lent. We had church every night this past week. Some of us were here every night. It sounds like Holy Week because it's such an important part of entering into the fullness of what Great Lent is about. And trust me when I tell you that in the next 2 minutes, I'm not scolding you. I want to share information with you. We had about 25 people here for the singing of the great canon of St. Andrew of Crete. Now, I'll spare you all of the calculations. That means that about 7% of our active membership attended, and about 15% of those of you that are regular attenders on a Sunday morning. Now, again, I told you I'm not scolding you. I'm saying this as an example of the fact that we, Orthodox Christians, in this land, in this time, have a problem. And the problem is we want to experience Orthodoxy in its fullness without necessarily putting out the effort it takes to experience the fullness. I will confess to you, I didn't want to come to church every night this week. When it got to 5 or 5:30 and I thought, oh, it's almost time to go home, and then all of a sudden it hit me, wait a minute. There's a service tonight. And most nights it was pretty long and a lot of effort. So all of us are in the place where none of us puts out the effort that we need to experience Orthodoxy in its fullness. None of us ever will. So I'm not here to tell you if you didn't come to church, you're bad. What I want to tell you is everything we miss out on in the church, whether we miss a service, whether we don't open our Bibles, whether we skip out on a sacrament, anything we miss is not a cause for guilt. It's a cause for that sensation when you hear about something and then it's too late. I was looking a few weeks ago at flights. I had a couple open days. I thought maybe I'll go down to Florida for a couple days. And I saw an ad come up on the screen. Flights to Florida, $39. Wow. I thought, wow, $39. For less than $80, I can go to Florida and back. I go for a couple days, come back before Lent starts. I went back an hour later, gone. That sense that I have, the sense that any of us has when we miss out on something that was really good, that's what we should feel when we miss any aspect of our orthodoxy. Missing out on the fullness of our faith is not something we should ignore. If we have to miss a service, we should miss it knowing we're missing out, not justifying it and telling ourselves why, it didn't matter. And on this day of the Sunday of Orthodoxy, this is the day we think about this more than any other. Listen to today's gospel, and you'll know what I'm talking about. Jesus travels to Galilee. There he finds the one who will become the apostle Philip. We're not privy in the gospel to what the conversation was or what Philip understood. What we do know is that at the end of that conversation, Jesus says to Philip 2 words, "Follow me." And after saying those 2 words, Philip does. Not just following Jesus to a certain place that day. Philip followed Jesus for the rest of his life. If he had a family, we don't know. He didn't see them very often after that. Because when Jesus said, "Follow me," Philip went. There's one more aspect of this fullness of orthodoxy that we have to understand. If we're Philip, and like Philip, we try to follow Christ, the first thing we have to think about is, we're not done. When Jesus said to Philip, "Follow me," on that day, Philip had only begun to experience the truth of what Jesus was going to reveal to him. Today the gospel ended with a line that they were going to see things greater than the things they had already seen. They were going to see the angels of heaven ascending and descending on the Son of Man. In other words, the man Philip was talking to looked like an ordinary man, looked like me or you, human, normal. He said to Philip, "The one you're talking to, you're going to see the heavens opened. And you're going to see the mighty powers of heaven ascending and descending upon me." That's what happened to Philip. But it didn't happen then. Philip spent the rest of his life following Jesus and learning and experiencing more of the fullness of orthodoxy. Philip was an Orthodox Christian, and he experienced more of that fullness every day because he put out the effort. But that's the first aspect I want to draw your attention about Philip. But there's another important part of Philip's story. After Philip meets Jesus, after Jesus says to Philip, "Follow me," and Philip begins to follow him, Philip takes a little detour. And he goes out and he finds his friend Nathaniel. He says, "Nathaniel, you have to come with me and see someone that we think is the one prophesied from Moses and all the prophets. He's coming from Galilee." Nathaniel, apparently ever the skeptic, says, "Can anything good come out of Galilee?" And Philip says to Nathaniel those beautiful words, "Come and see." We hear those words today because the icons have been restored to the church. And we can come and see the fullness of orthodoxy because of these icons. But when Philip said to Nathaniel, "Come and see," Nathaniel went. And Nathaniel saw. And Nathaniel comes to us, we know him later on, as Bartholomew, one of the 12 apostles. And Bartholomew spends the rest of his life following Jesus. One of the places we think that Bartholomew went was the area around what's now Syria and Lebanon. It's very possible that we, some of us, are here as Orthodox Christians today because of Bartholomew. Because Philip went to him, and he was still called Nathaniel, and said, "Come and see." So, brothers and sisters, I want to leave you with these 2 thoughts. One, that we have been given the fullness of the faith. We make bold claims as Orthodox. We say, in Orthodoxy, and only in Orthodoxy, have we been given everything. Every revelation that God wanted to give humanity, we have it. Every icon, every saint, every sacrament, every truth, every revelation is here. You and I sit on a gold mine, much better than the winning ticket to the next $500 million Powerball. Holy Orthodoxy, that priceless pearl of great price. We have it. Let's remember that we have it, and let's never ignore it or minimize it. Let's dive into it. That's what Lent is about, diving into the fullness of who God is and how He's loving us. But then remember as well Nathaniel. If Philip didn't go and call Nathaniel, Nathaniel would have become the great apostle Barnabas. And who knows how many countless people came to knowledge of God through the witness of Nathaniel. And right now, out in the world are untold numbers of Nathaniels. If we're Philip, they're Nathaniel. They don't know the treasure that we have found. They don't know that Christ said to us, "Come and follow me." And they don't know the treasure that He's offered to us. And believe me when I tell you, and I'm not judging, but so much of Christianity has laid aside authentic and complete Christianity that even Christians aren't given what we have. So I want you to think about that, to realize the treasure we have, and to realize that there are those out there that have no clue but are dying for it. If given the opportunity, they would accept the invitation like Nathaniel accepted it. Philip said to him, "Come and see." And Philip went, and Nathaniel went, and Nathaniel became a disciple and an apostle. So, brothers and sisters, in addition to valuing the priceless pearl that we've been given, let's remember that others need it too. How many people in this world would benefit if they knew what confession would do to their souls? If they knew the relief that they would get by somebody who heard their worst actions and said to them, "God forgives you." Imagine what they would experience when they were offered the invitation to, with the fear of God and faith and love, draw near and receive Holy Communion. We have the priceless gift. We have the pearl of great price. Let's appreciate it. Let's dive deep into it. And then let's share it with the world that needs it as well. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.